Okay, we're back with more from Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And if you watched the first video, I keep saying start with your why. I think just because it's in my mindset to help yourself grow. So I say start with your why, but the book is Start With Why. So today we're going to read over more of these excerpts. I talked a lot more in the last video. So this, I still want to get some of those points out, and I have a lot written down, but usually I stop pretty quick because if not, there's a fine line between the video getting too long and me just reading you the whole book. So I still want to share some of those excerpts with you, and these are the ones I chose to. So we'll get into it. The first one's in the preface. The discovery of why completely changed my view of the world, and discovering my own why restored my passion to a degree multiple times greater than at any other time in my life. It was such a simple, powerful, and actionable idea. I like that last sentence. A simple, powerful, and actionable idea. So many things that can drastically improve our lives are simple, powerful, and actionable. Look at things for your health, working out, and nutrition. Simple, powerful, and actionable. Page 6 is the next one. The ability to motivate people is not in itself difficult. It is usually tied to some external factor. Tempting incentives or the threat of punishment will often elicit the behavior we desire. Great leaders, in contrast, are able to inspire people to act. Those who are able to inspire give people a sense of purpose or belonging that has little to do with any external incentive or benefit to be gained. Those who truly lead are able to create a following of people who act not because they were swayed, but because they were inspired. Now remember, this book's all about leading other people and finding meaning in that, or helping them find their meaning. And I just like this for yourself. If you get in that leadership position or put yourself into one, what type of leader do you want to be? Are you going to be the one who says, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to get in trouble? Or are you going to be the type to inspire them to want to help you? And I think we all know people who do both. We do people who have those incentives or threat of punishment. That's their go-to. And personally, who really likes those people? If you're having to threaten to punish someone if they don't show up on time, or if they don't do this or that, is that as effective as trying to inspire them to show up on time or do this or that activity? So understanding that there are different types of leaders will hopefully inspire you to choose the right one who you want to be. Page 7. All the inspiring leaders in companies, regardless of size or industry, think, act, and communicate exactly alike. And it's the complete opposite of everyone else. I like that because I've always said if everyone else is doing it, it's probably not right. And there's a lot of truth to that. Obviously, to a certain extent, right? If everyone's eating food, we have to eat food. But I'm talking more of along the lines of all the activities people do. If you see 90% of the population doing A, B, and C, and 90% of that population is never growing, never changing, but they're always doing the same thing for generation after generation or year after year, maybe it's time to think, what should I be doing if everyone you look at is doing the same thing and they're never growing? Maybe that's not the right thing to do. And when it said all these successful companies do the exact same thing, and it's the exact opposite of the 90% of other companies, then it just solidifies that fact, right? If you see everyone doing something and they're not benefiting from it, it's time to think in your head of other options, other possibilities of what may be the right thing to do. Page 12. The correction of a simple, false assumption moved the human race forward. People feared that if they traveled too far, they might fall off the edge of the earth. So for the most part, they stayed put. It wasn't until that minor detail was revealed, the world is round, that behaviors changed on a massive scale. People began to traverse the planet. Trade routes were established. New ideas like mathematics were shared between societies, which unleashed all kinds of innovations and advancements. Kind of tying in with the last excerpt of what you think in your head is the right thing to do, or what you think is right. In this case, everyone who thought the world was flat didn't travel, right? They're not going out to explore the world or do what they really do because everyone else is staying put. Until that few percent go out and explore and grow, then everyone started to follow them, right? I just want that to be another reminder that what you're doing right now may not be the right thing to do. Our minds, remember, can play tricks on you. So if in your head you see everyone around you doing something and now you're doing it and you're saying, hey, this is the right thing to do, it may not be. Because if your mind is wrong and lying to yourself, then you can stay caught in a trap, just like the flat earthers, people who thought the world was flat, were caught in a trap. Or at least they believed what they couldn't get from point A to point B without falling off the edge of the world. And as we've figured out, that's not true. So just remember that. Always be open to growth. What you're doing right now may be the right thing to do, but always be open to the idea that where you're at right now is just a stepping stone. Page 22. Let me scroll down. Mark Twain said, quitting smoking is the easiest thing I've ever done. I've done it hundreds of times. If fear motivates us to move away from something horrible, aspirational messages tempt us towards something desirable. Work those abs to your dream dress size is one example. Though positive in nature, aspirational messages are most effective with those who lack discipline or have a nagging fear of insecurity that they don't have the ability to achieve their dreams on their own. I always joke that you can get someone to buy a gym membership with an aspirational message, but to get them to go 3 days a week requires a bit of inspiration. It's those who don't have the lifestyle who are more susceptible to the statement, 6 easy steps to losing weight. It's just a good reminder of who you are, right? Who's going to be more swayed by an article saying 6 easy steps to losing weight? Are you trying to get that aspirational message to get you to do something? Or are you going to have the discipline to set out and do it? Because if you see an article and you become inspired to do it, the aspirational message motivates you to do it. The only reason that is because you already knew you should have been losing weight. That's just one example I'm going to give, right? Obviously, it could be for anything else. But that's the problem. If you already know that's what you should be doing and that's what you want, don't wait for that aspirational message to motivate you, because that motivation will run out. Work on yourself to build discipline to set out and go after what you want. If you know you need to lose weight, or you know you need to pursue this career, then go out and do it. Don't wait for the motivation. Because when your motivation fades away and you don't have discipline, you're going to stop. Page 28. Beyond the business world, manipulations are the norm in politics today as well. Just as manipulations can drive a sale but not create loyalty, so too can they help a candidate get elected, but they don't create a foundation for leadership. Leadership requires people to stick with you through thick and thin. Leadership is the ability to rally people not for a single event, but for years. This is just a real good basic basic knowledge for life when you're building relationships. The one thing personally with this book, I'm not driven like by this business to kind of, this is meant for helping other people, and it gives a lot of business examples, and sometimes it can be twisted wrong if you don't have the right values. But it has a lot of good life lessons. Regardless, you just have to be careful, because when it's talking about building relationships based off loyalty, you just have to make sure the reason you're doing it is for the right reason, right? We be wanting to make people better, and that's what the book means. I'm just saying, when it's talking about how to build these relationships, and not to do like with the politics, how it's saying if you do it the wrong way, people may not follow you later on. You should be wanting to build these relationships for the relationships themselves. I'm not going to go too much into that, but just a good example for life. Don't manipulate people. It's a simple concept. I'm sure we all know it. But that's why you really need to build your values, because I say it's a simple concept, but how many people out there, whether it's on a friend level, a business level, we know politics, how many manipulate their audience or their friend group to get what they want? There's so many manipulators out there. And so I guess it's good I did talk about it, because I say it's a simple thing we should all know. But there's grown people, young and old, who are still out there manipulating others today. So I will say it again then. Make sure your values are in check of why you're building these relationships, or why you're in this business, so that when you're creating relationships, you're doing it for the relationship itself. You're not doing it to be manipulative and trying to take something from them. So that's exactly what the book was talking about too. But just an audience reading this, they may take the information of how companies manipulate people and use that to manipulate other people. And that's what I'm trying to say. Have your values in check first. I was talking about reading Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Read Man's Search for Meaning to find your own meaning and values in life, and work on yourself. And then read this book when you're ready to help lead other people with meaning. Okay. Page 29. Loyalty is when people are willing to turn down a better product or a better price to continue doing business with you. Loyal customers often don't even bother to research the competition or entertain other options. Loyalty is not easily won. Repeat business, however, is. All it takes is more manipulations. That in part, I just don't like the term manipulations, but I like the part about loyalty. And it's with anything, with business or with friends, building a great foundation of a relationship for the right reasons is building a relationship. It's not building a transaction. If you're trying to build if you're trying to build a transactional relationship, you do something for them, and now you expect something in return, versus you building a loyal relationship to where if you need help, you have people around you who are willing to help you. And that's just not on a personal level. Imagine on a business level. Let's say someone calls you into work because they need extra help. How many times is it that you really want to go on and help them? Or are you in a position where they're having to offer you overtime, or you're mad because it's transactional? You don't care about coming in to help because of the foundation of the relationship that's been built with you. And that's the difference. So maybe you're not in that leader position, but if you are, what type of relationship do you want to build? Transactional, or one based off loyalty? And to determine which one you're building is based off of the actions and the way you act every single day. And I think it goes back to your values, not as yourself, not just with yourself, but with the company you're in too. Page 33, Peter Wybrow and his book, American Mania. When more is not enough, he argues that many of the ills that we suffer from today have very little to do with the bad food we're eating. Rather, it's the way that corporate America has developed. Let me go back. It's Peter Wybrow in his book, American Mania, When More Is Not Enough. That's the book. So Wybrow argues that many of the ills that we suffer from today have very little to do with the bad food we're eating. Rather, these illnesses are from the way that corporate America has developed, and it's increased our stress to levels so high we're literally making ourselves sick from it. Americans are suffering ulcers, depression, high blood pressure, anxiety, and cancer at record levels. According to Wybrow, all those promises of more, more, more are actually overloading the reward circuits of our brain. The short-term gains that drive business in America are actually destroying our health. I've never read the book. I don't know how much science is behind that, but I just like the point of, well, the point I wanted to drive home with that. I get what he's saying, right? Maybe it's making you sick, but I like the idea that everything you do has a sacrifice. Every choice you make or every lack of choice has a sacrifice. So people who don't do certain things because they're scared of this A, B, or C happening, well, by you making that, or by you not making that choice, there's a new A, B, or C that's going to happen. So if you're working really hard at something, maybe you're sacrificing pleasures. Or if you're living a life more of pleasure, maybe you're sacrificing that growth you could have made by working hard. So finding your own balance, that's going to be up to you what your balance is. But I do like the idea that even here, right, the short-term gains that drive business in America are actually destroying our health. It's just another sacrifice. No matter how true or not what he's saying is, it is true that working so hard for these gains, there is going to be a sacrifice. Maybe for some it's their health. Maybe for others it's their family, their sanity, their peace of mind. You're sacrificing one thing to gain another. Look on the simplest scale, eating a meal. If I eat more potatoes, I'm sacrificing how much meat I can eat, right? You can take it at any scale. So look at life. Every choice you make has a sacrifice. And that's the scary thing, because sometimes you don't realize what you're sacrificing until it's already gone. And that's pretty deep, because when you realize it, you want to hope you're not filled with regret. So you don't want to fall in a trap of never-ending thinking where you never make any choices, but you want to make informed choices. And that's why I always say to be open to growth, because you need to choose something and start driving towards it, but be open to the idea that, hey, that may not be the best option, and use that as a stepping stone to move over to that next path. The last thing I'm going to read is from page 50. So 50 to 51. Close this up. Not the only way, just one way. Knowing your why is not the only way to be successful, but it is the only way to maintain a lasting success and have a greater blend of innovation and flexibility. When a why goes fuzzy, it becomes much more difficult to maintain the growth, loyalty, and inspiration that helps drive the original success. By difficult, I mean that manipulation rather than inspiration fast becomes the strategy of choice to motivate behavior. This is effective in the short term, but comes at a high cost in the long term. Consider the classic business school case of the railroads. In the late 1800s, the railroads were the biggest companies in the country, having achieved such monumental success, even changing the landscape of America, remembering why stopped being important to them. Instead, they became obsessed with what they did. They were in the railroad business. This narrowing of perspective influenced their decision making. They invested all their money in tracks and cross ties and engines. But at the beginning of the 20th century, a new technology was introduced, the airplane. And all those big railroad companies eventually went out of business. What if they had defined themselves as being in the mass transportation business? Perhaps their behavior would have been different. Perhaps they would have seen opportunities that they otherwise missed. Perhaps they would own all the airlines today. The comparison raises the question of the long-term survivability of so many other companies that have defined themselves and their industries by what they do. They have been doing it the same way for so long that their ability to compete against a new technology or see a new perspective becomes a daunting task. The story of the railroads has eerie similarities to the case of the music industry discussed earlier. This is another industry that has not done a good job of adjusting its business model to fit a behavioral change prompted by a new technology. But other industries whose business models evolved in a different time show similar cracks. The newspaper, publishing, and television industries, to name but three. These are the current day railroads that are struggling to define their value while watching their customers turn to companies from other industries to serve their needs. Perhaps if music companies had a clearer sense of why, they would have seen the opportunity to invent the equivalent of iTunes instead of leaving it to a scrappy computer company. In all cases, going back to the original purpose, cause, or belief will help these industries adapt. Instead of asking, what should we do to compete? The question must be asked, why did we start doing what we're doing in the first place? And what can we do to bring our cause to life, considering all the technologies and market opportunities available today? But don't take my word for it. None of this is my opinion. It is all firmly grounded in the tenets of biology. And it goes on to talk more about biology and the golden circle is another idea it mentions in here. More that you can read. I wanted to read that example, that whole little passage, to learn what happened to the railroads and to learn what happens when you do not have an open mind. Because like I was trying to drive home earlier, the idea that where you're at now may just be a stepping stone. Stepping stones help you get to the other side. Let's say a creek, right? Stepping stones help you get across. Just because we call the first one a stepping stone doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. And that's the problem. Because like in a business, if you make that first step and you're in the right spot, but you're not in a mindset of growth, you're not going to keep going. The railroad company, they were in the right spot at that time. Right? They're making the move away from everyone else on the bank. But what happens when they didn't realize how much more they could grow? They didn't look at that as a stepping stone, and they looked at that as their dock holding them back. And what did we see happen? Airline companies came out and blew them out of the water because they stayed where they're at. If they would have had a mindset of growth and realized, hey, that was the right first step, but it's not the last step. It's a stepping stone. Now time to move over to the next. Airlines. Then maybe they would have went to a next one. Could have been the space shuttle. They're trying to make a mass transportation or a leisure activity. That's what you hear about. So see how you can grow? You can grow so much. if you realize that where you're at right now may not be where you need to end, it's just a stepping stone. And realize that using it as a stepping stone and moving on to something new doesn't mean it's a waste, because you wouldn't be where you're at if you didn't do all the things you did. So it's never a waste. So there's no reason not to have a growth mindset. It's just a stepping stone to get you to that next level. And that's really what I want you to learn, that I know it's easy to say to have a growth mindset, but how many people really want to grow versus how many want to stay where they're at? And just because you think something doesn't mean it's right. Even me thinking this, remember, your mind plays tricks on you. And if you're not in the right mindset, or if you're flawed to your thinking, and that's keeping you where you're at right now, that's going to be a problem years later down the road. So the solution to that is to always have an open mind and always be willing to grow and accept new ideas. And you may just find out that that's the next step you need to take. So Start With Your Why by Simon Sinek. These were a lot more excerpts. There's a lot more you can take away in the book. Look back to the first video for more talk about this. And I'll say it once again, read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Find your own meaning, your own why, and use this book to help you form that leadership position wherever you're at with whoever you want. Well, until the next one, we'll see what the next book is, but hope you took something away from it.